Dinah's brothers are the literal definition of mess around and find out. Mess around and find out. Let's get into the story of Dinah, because this story blows my mind, but there are lessons in this story as well. Okay, so Dinah, she was the daughter of Jacob. Now, she was his only daughter. She was the daughter of one of his wives, Leah. Now, Jacob married Leah and Rachel. We all know that he waited and worked 14 years to marry Rachel because that's the one he loved. And Leah, he was tricked into marrying, okay? So Leah birthed him a daughter, and she was his only daughter amongst all boys, okay? So Dinah was very beautiful. She was out and about. She was walking, minding her business. And a prince of another city, Prince Shechem, he saw her, and he was like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. So he seized her and he raped her. Now, while raping her, he fell in love with her. Boom. So after he raped her, she goes back to her family and she tells them what happened, okay? And following her telling them what happened, the prince himself that raped her and his father came over to Jacob's city to ask for for Dinah's hand in marriage because he had fell in love with her while he was raping her, okay? So, I'm gonna pause right there because I'm just thinking like, okay, you were raping this girl, right? She didn't want it. So she may not have fought you because you are a prince, and she may have been scared in that moment, but I know you could tell in her face that she was not enjoying that. So what point did you fall in love with her? That really blows my mind. Anyways, so because Jacob did not want any type of calamity or any type of war to break out between the two cities, he wanted to keep the peace, and he did not avenge his daughter. But his sons weren't having that because that was their only sister, so they were very protective over their sister. So it was Levi and Simeon. They weren't having that. They were furious, okay? Way more furious than Jacob should have been. Jacob did fail in his fatherly duties, his leadership duties over his household to protect and avenge his daughter, okay? So, or just really protect his daughter. He could have found a way to protect her and avenge her that didn't involve violence. But Simeon and Levi weren't having that, okay? They was like, we know what to do. So they told the father, because the father had inquired about marrying Dinah to his son. They was like, yeah, you know what, you could we're gonna give Dinah to you, but you guys have to go and be circumcised. Our God, it requires us to be circumcised. So circumcision is required of you guys as well if you want to marry my sister. So because the prince was just so in love with this girl and he wanted to hurry up and marry her, he rushed back to his town to marry her. To circumcise himself and circumcise all his men. And then what Levi and Simeon did was they went into the town and they killed all the men. Then the rest of the brothers came into the town and they plundered the town, taking all the goods and everything, right? So it got back to Jacob and he was like, oh my God, what have you done? What have you done? Why would you do this? Now, the brothers were smart in having the town circumcise themselves before they went in and killed them. That's how 2 men was able to take out a whole town, because the men were weaker. They had been circumcised. They were in pain. They really couldn't fight. So Simeon and Levi were able to win in that battle when they went over there and they killed everybody. And then the rest of the brothers came and plundered the town. Now, if you really look at it, Dinah had been failed on all sides. She had been raped by a prince, okay? She had been unprotected by her father, and she had been used as bait by her brothers. They used her as bait because their anger had taken root and began to sprout, right? What takes root in your life, that seed you plant in your life or inside of you, it's going to sprout. This is why Jesus tells us to catch it at the root. This is why he says being angry is just as bad as committing actual sin, right? Because before someone murders somebody, they're angry first. The anger has been there a minute, and now they have a desire to want and do something about that anger and act on that anger. And instead of giving the problem to God, which the brothers should have done, because they had a good base, they had a father who was faith-based and he followed God. Jacob followed God too. They had a good example of what a relationship with God looked like. They still decided to take matters into their own hands. And I like to call that's a way of like careless or thoughtless avenging. You're avenging somebody, but you could possibly be hurting the original victim by using her as bait to avenge her. So now she's just like, okay, well, you did avenge me, thank you, but like, Dad, you used me as bait to do it. You couldn't find no other way to do it. But see, the brothers, they weren't, at that point, they weren't even thinking about Dinah. They just wanted revenge. because the anger in their heart had festered up so much. They had let that anger fester. It had begun to grow into their hearts, okay? But what they should have done was just given it to God, okay? What Jacob should have done was pray to God about it as too, because as you can see, he didn't try to avenge her anyway. He had a relationship with God. All he had to do was say, listen, God, they raped my daughter, but I want to keep the peace. What do I do? Jacob should have known this first in his household. This is why you also need to raise a child in the way they should go, so when they get older, they shall not depart. I'm not saying that children don't deviate from the faith. They do. I did. I'm a living example of that scripture. I did deviate, although I grew up in the church, but I found my way back to Christ, okay? So this is why Jesus is saying that it's the anger that is the sin first. You got to catch it at the root, because they could have avenged Dinah in a different way. And there are people in your life that you may know of who have been raped, and they feel very alone and forgotten. But I want you to know that Jesus has not forgotten you. You are never alone. God is always there with you, even when something traumatic as rape happens. It's okay to tell people in your life that you were raped, but you want to run to God with your problems first. Let him avenge you.